Good evening, parents, and welcome to the Senior School Information Evening for 2022. This evening we have decided to combine the Year 10, 11 and 12 information evenings to try and avoid as much as possible parents coming on site due to the current pandemic. To begin tonight, as we always do, with acknowledgement of country and prayer, I'd like to welcome Paul Caulfield.
The community of St Lawrence's College acknowledges that this school stands on the sacred lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. While there's been great change to this land over many generations, the story and spirit of the traditional owners will be written in the landscape. In the spirit of reconciliation, we honour and respect custodians past, present and emerging. We are grateful for the opportunity to join with them in continuing to nurture this land. Let us remember we are one in land, one in spirit and one in community. The theme for 2022 is One in the Spirit. The theme looks at us as a Catholic community and what unites us and makes us unique. The Spirit itself can take on many different meanings, and even those who may not be connected to a faith still have a spirit burning inside of them. Ronald Rolheiser says that everyone has a spirituality. Before we do anything religious, we must do something with the fire that burns inside of us. It is how we direct or channel this fire that becomes our spirituality. We direct or channel these desires or fire through the habits we choose to live by, leading to a greater integration of our minds, bodies and souls, or even God's, others and the cosmic world. At St Lawrence's College, we channel our passions to building an inclusive community, which continually seeks to create and renew respectful and compassionate relationships by which can all experience what it means to be fully human. While our students strive to find what stirs their soul, the Lauries Journey guides them, and this journey is not taken alone. It involves the whole community and ensures that everyone knows they are valued in the image and likeness of God. While our theme is One in the Spirit, our touchstone that we focus on this year is inclusive community. When Edmund Rice first set up his schools, it was about creating communities where everyone could be included. This was written about Edmund Rice in starting up his first schools. Edmund's schools for the rejects of society was opened in the same area where those who were at the pinnacle of society lived. This seems hardly an accident. He was welcoming to these urchins, God's gentry, into this salubrious residential area as having a right to be there. Given such provocative action, it was but natural to expect that the inhabitant objected to his boys. From its very genesis, Rice's education was challenging and subversive. It deliberately attacked the class system that allocated people for life into categories set for them by convention or by those who with influence and power. Rice welcomed these children into his society as guests, having a rightful place to be there because of the common humanity that they all shared. And we pray together in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, through your Holy Spirit, you created unity in the midst of diversity. We acknowledge that human diversity is an expression of your manifold love of your creation. We confess that in our brokenness as human beings, we turn diversity into a source of alienation, injustice, oppression and wounding. Empower us to recognise and celebrate differences as your great gift of the human family. Enable us to be architects of understanding, of respect and love. You, the one from whom on different paths all of us have come, to whom on different paths all of us are going. Make us strong in our heart in what unites us. Build bridges across what divides us. United, make us rejoice in our diversity, and at one in witness to your peace, a rainbow to your glory. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to our online senior school information session. This year, obviously, we've got the 10s, 11s and 12s together in one presentation. It's very important that we understand, if you are a new parent to Year 10, that Year 10 is a step up. And our unique program asks the boys to complete 6 subjects as they move into Year 11 and 12 and more formal assessment. In 2022, we are still grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic. It continues to challenge us all. I'll reiterate what I've said in previous meetings and events, that Lauries is not a cancelled school. So whatever we can do to have your boys engage in our school, we'll continue to do that face to face, of course making sure everyone's safe and following government guidelines. But we thank you for your patience to this point, and we'll get through this current pandemic together. I'd like to look at each year level very briefly together. Year 10, it's a new level of learning. 6 subjects plus religious education, greater depth, less assessment, transition to senior education. We ask our boys to be structured, we ask them to step up, and we ask them to perform to the best of our abilities. Year 11 is movement to formal assessment through the ATAR program. Many of them will be well and truly into Unit 1 in their senior course. It's a consolidation phase of learning. And Year 12 is the finish year for their formal Lauries Journey. And that has everything from worrying about academic outcomes, whether they'll have employment, to those great events such as graduation, commissioning, and first year, start of year mass, etc. So for our Year 12, our seniors, we welcome you to your final year of schooling. We know it'll be a great year, and they've already begun brilliantly as they move from Year 11 to Year 12. What we ask for in senior school, and I'll be brief here, we ask for leadership. We ask them to show the younger boys what it means to be a Lauries gentleman in all aspects of life. We ask them to serve, to show service, not to have themselves at the centre of all they do, but to focus on the well-being of others. We ask them to show discipline, that's self-discipline, not to get personal gratification initially, but to look at what's best in the long term. We hope and we ask that they enjoy their time. Lauries is a great fun place to be a student at. I've seen laughing faces already as we've had the essential workers boys back. We hope particularly Year 12 enjoy their final year of our college. And legacy. We hope that each year strives to leave a positive legacy on our school community. At Lauries in senior school, we try to value add through a number of programs. Through the mentoring program, and Year 10 set planning being very important, and Year 11 and 12 mentoring meetings, looking at their academic progress, are of equal importance. Participation is essential. The students who achieve the best participate in many elements of college life. There is study support available here. We ask the boys not to sit back and wait for assistance, but to seek it early. That's when we get the best interventions, whether it's through study help or through staff tutorials. And these boys, we know, are our best role models. I've done many interviews this term, and the comment has been, your boys are so good in the community, on the bus, on the train. We ask that they continue to be good Lauries gentlemen. So as you move into senior school, I welcome you, and I trust that the year has as fewer restrictions as possible, and that the boys grow and have a great year. Thank you very much.
Welcome everyone again. The senior school at St Lawrence's College is really about the formation of our boys so that they are able to leave as successful young adults when they choose to leave in Year 12 or possibly earlier along with their vet pathways. Tonight you'll be able to hear from a range of guest speakers, Dr Liam Herbert, Mr Andrew Newcomb, Mr Adam Furman, Mr Paul Moskos, about the senior school, about pathways that are available for students, and also the support that's on offer. What's the differences between middle and senior school? So our expectations are that our students are self-directed in senior school. In saying that, our staff are here to help and support them as much as possible, and that's done in a range of, or through a range of staff, which I'll get to shortly. Our Year 10 program is really to get that formation of students and also to prepare students for their ATAR. So what is really important in Year 10 is those foundational skills that are required for Year 11 and for Year 12 for each of their subjects. Obviously for Year 10, our students have just selected their 6 subjects that they'll continue through to Year 12. It is possible for students to change those subjects, and if possible, we request that they do that in Year 10 after they finish their Unit 1 in Year 10. That way, they have started by Year 10 those formational skills that are required for Year 11 and 12. Over the holiday break, I have had some parent inquiries about Year 11 and the notion that Year 11 doesn't count. It's true that Year 11 doesn't count for the ATAR, so for their overall ATAR. However, Year 11 does count for QCE points. That's the Queensland Certificate of Education. So in order to receive a Queensland Certificate of Education, saying that basically you've graduated Year 12, students are required to get 20 QCE points. Students get 1 QCE point per unit in Year 11. So by the time they finish Year 11 with their 6 ATAR subjects, they can possibly get a maximum of 12 points. Those points, as I mentioned, are important by the end of Year 12, obviously by passing all of those subjects to hopefully maintain their 20 QCE points. The college does have a range of courses also available to students in Year 11 and 12, certificate courses where we can bolster some of those points for students who may, by the end of Year 12, be looking at not receiving a QCE. For Year 12, it is very important that they commence this week with their online learning, that they are doing their best, that they are engaged in their subjects. They will have, in week 9, their first exam block, assessment block for this year, where they will be doing some of their IAs, some of the subjects that count towards their ATAR at the end of the year. So it's extremely important that our Year 12 boys commence in the first week with their online learning and are engaged in their subjects. And finally, that adolescent transition, that transition from middle school to senior school. I'm sure for most of our Year 11 and 12 parents, they can attest that at the start of Year 10 it can still be a little bit difficult with some Year 10 boys transitioning to adulthood or to being a young man. But it does happen, and the maturity throughout Year 10 does improve. And obviously, once again, our heads of house, our house mentors, our pastoral staff are here to assist with that transition. Our mentoring program in senior school looks slightly different to that of middle school. For our Year 10, they will have a set P meeting with a middle leader later on in the year. For Year 11, they commence their mentoring at the end of Year 11. So generally speaking, when they start their Unit 3 work is when they will start. And our Year 12s just commenced their mentoring program with a middle leader or senior leader at the start of last year. The purpose of those mentoring interviews is to obviously provide a staff member to each student to monitor their progress, to ask questions, to provide feedback, so that they're able to get the best possible pathway when our boys leave Year 12. A reminder that Study Starter is on in the library starting in week 3, which will actually be when we begin face-to-face learning on the 7th of February. Our library is open every afternoon until 5:30. So boys are able to stay around. We have some tutors that are there. Boys can take any form of assessment, assignments, exam, study, revision that they wish, and they can get help for those. For a lot of boys, it's just about starting assignments. So they can take an assignment there, they can sit down with the tutor and formulate how they might start to start to address that assignment. In terms of pastoral support, obviously by now, hopefully our parents are aware that the house mentor should be the first port of contact, and that you've managed to have several meetings throughout your time in 7, 8, 9 to meet your house mentor, to email, to be in communication with them. We then have our heads of house, our senior school studies person, Mr. Andrew Newcomb, who's able to answer any questions in regards to, in particular, ATAR subjects, changing subjects for senior school, or any studies-related questions, and myself as Dean of Pastoral Care, but looking after senior school for years 10, 11, 12. Our Lauries Journey lessons in senior school look very different to middle school. Some of the topics that we cover in senior school obviously go into a little bit more depth than they do in middle school, where we look at things such as masculinity and respect for relationships. Part of our survey feedback from last year's Year 12 group was one of the big things for our Year 12s was around sleep, not getting the amount of sleep that they require, and therefore turning up to exams or turning up to school with some sleep deprivation and therefore not achieving their best. So we will have a guest presenter. Her name is Lisa Maltman from a company called The Sleep Connection. Her overall objective is helping students to thrive with their overall health and well-being, resilience, school performance, and family lives through her interactive programs and workshops. So we are engaging with Lisa this year for our senior school. Year 12s also hear later in the year about drugs and alcohol. Our Year 10 boys get a presentation about One Punch Can Kill. And finally, the Year 11 boys receive a road safety presentation from the Queensland Fire Service about driving, which can be confronting, but is also very, very beneficial for those boys who are driving cars. Obviously now you're aware that we have a house structure, and we really rely on our senior school boys to mentor the younger boys within their class. It is about those senior school boys turning up to school with the correct uniform, being positive role models, and also being able to engage in their home class in the mornings with those younger boys in a positive manner. And also providing them with their study skills, preparing for external assessments, how that looks, and providing that information onto our younger boys as well. So how they study for their exams, what are the skills that they've learnt, how can they assist with the younger boys with their exam preparation. Access to information for the school. Hopefully you're aware of all of this at the moment, parents being in senior school, but the college does have an app. All of the important information is on the college app, so please make sure that you've downloaded that. Weekly newsletters are also a great source of information, particularly at the moment with dates and events changing. Obviously, at the moment, the college leadership team is looking at all the events at the start of the year. For our Year 12 parents in particular, the first event which has already changed is the commissioning assembly. There will be some more information following in the week of the 31st to Year 12 parents in particular in regards to that commissioning assembly where we commission our Year 12s to the school. Obviously the school has Twitter and Facebook, and you're urged to get onto those as well in regards to events that are happening at the college. And for boys, particularly this week in Learning at Home, there is on the college website Lauries at Home. There is in there a wealth of information regarding health and well-being of students being our priority. So if your son is struggling this week with online learning, by all means he's welcome to come to the college, and we can supervise him here while he's doing those online lessons. But also feel free to point him in that direction of the website and the Lauries at Home. There's also a whole bunch of useful videos about keeping that routine, and it is important that the boys start their routine this week so that when they get back to school next week they can do their very best. And I've mentioned that dates will change. So dates for term 1 are already changing. Please keep up to date with the, obviously the emails and also the information coming out from the college. Our expectations for senior school boys are definitely higher than what they are for our middle school students. First of all, we expect our senior school boys to show their teachers respect. Teachers, each other, respect at home, and also respect for those at the margins. So we take a team approach to respect for relationships in senior school. And that is obviously enforced with the boys during year level assemblies and house assemblies as well with those younger boys. Our positive behaviour for learning document, we really ask that our senior school boys being positive role models for that. So things like mobile phones, not having them out during school time, and showing that the rules, I guess, relate to those as much as they do for the younger boys. In regards to our driving policy, obviously the area around the school only has a 2-hour parking limit. So for boys that do have their P plates, or by the time they get to the end of year 12, a lot of the boys have finished on their Ps, driving to and from school. Boys are not able to park at the school grounds at all. They may be towed. And I've also received at the end of last year a phone call from the City Council with regards to parking inspectors. In the past, basically parking inspectors have come around and they have given boys tickets in the past. However, this year there are no parking inspectors. I've been told that there is now an automated car which will be driving around and issuing electronic tickets to students or to anyone that's parked in the area for more than 2 hours. So what that means for a student, I'm told, is that they may not receive a ticket for 4 to 6 weeks, and they may then receive multiple tickets all at the same time. So obviously for our year 12 boys in particular, but I know that many of the year 11 boys get their driver's licence throughout the year, parking around the school is really at their own risk. If they do wish to drive, there are forms from the Pastoral precinct, just so aware of who is driving to school if anything does happen outside. And we need your help. Parents, we really need your help to work together. Obviously, as I mentioned, we have our house mentors, heads of house, who are all here for the pastoral and well-being of your sons. We really would like to help you. We really want to help the boys and ensuring that they can get the best time here at St Lawrence's College and finish with whatever pathway they choose to. I thank you very much for your time this evening. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the college and we'll do our very best to assist you. I hope you all have a great year. Look forward to seeing you in person when we can.
Good evening, parents and students of years 10 to 12. Can I welcome you to the evening tonight? My name is Liam Herbert. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning here at St Lawrence's College. Tonight I just wanted to touch briefly on a couple of things, particularly relating to senior schooling here at Lauries. And look, I'm very proud of our work here at Lauries. We have multiple opportunities, multiple pathways, multiple subject areas for our boys to pursue their personal sense of excellence. Just wanted to talk a little bit about our teaching and learning philosophy. Wanted to talk about the importance of senior school and particularly year 10 as that transition year. Touch briefly on online learning and then also introduce Mr Andrew Newcomb, who will talk specifically about the Queensland Certificate of Education and also the achievement of an ATAR. Later on tonight we'll also hear from Mr Paul Moskos, who will talk about career pathways. And we'll also hear from Mr James McLaughlin, who's our Head of Vocational Education. Just before we move on, I just thought I'd touch briefly on online learning. Very important, I think, next week, or as you listen to this, it'll be this week, that our boys connect online. So every single timetabled lesson, they need to be in front of their computer on Teams because they will be set work for the week. Their teacher will check in with them every single lesson. So if your son happens to come by you and sort of say, hey, I don't have any work to do, Mum. There is plenty of work going on. Teachers have been preparing all week to make sure that our boys can be engaged in their learning and start their learning on time for them to be really prepared when they come back. Our teachers know as well that boys will require some revision when they come back. So the content, particularly the first couple of days, will be revised upon their return, and we hope to see them back as soon as possible. But I guess the important message for online learning is that boys will be in front of their teacher for timetabled lessons for that whole online learning week. Just want to talk a little bit about our two main frameworks here, particularly in the teaching and learning area, but also I guess across the pastoral area. And we have the teaching and learning framework, which really links well with our agreed practice. And I just want to talk about how the agreed practice framework came about. On the one hand, we have our teaching and learning framework, which really, I guess, sets the basis for our curriculum and sets the basis for the framework of our lessons. But we also have our pastoral care documentation, our pastoral care framework, which really centres around our positive behaviour for learning. What we found is that there was this bit of a gap between those two frameworks. And then what we came up with was an agreed practice. And an agreed practice really sets out what students are doing at the beginning, during the lesson, and at the end of the lesson. And it's really clear guidelines about what teachers and students should follow in every single lesson. Importantly, at the start of every lesson, teachers will really clarify for our boys what they are learning, why they are learning it, and possibly link to real-world learning and what success looks like for them. And that success is extremely important, particularly leading into our internal assessment for Year 12 and our external assessment for Year 12. Our teaching and learning vision here, and our teaching and learning team comprised of heads of faculty, leaders of curriculum, and myself, I guess articulated what we're about. And what we really want to know is, and we really want to tell the community, is what our teaching and learning philosophy is. And our philosophy is really about encouraging and developing programs focused around engagement, growth, and excellence, and its personal sense of excellence. Not everyone achieves an A. For some boys, a certificate 1 in construction could be their personal sense of excellence, and we applaud that. So it's around facilitating engagement, growth and excellence through quality programs within that liberating education touchstone. And we're really passionate about that, particularly here at Lauries. Just want to touch briefly now about the importance of senior school. Boys would have chosen their subjects leading into Year 10, so I'm speaking particularly to our Year 10 parents now. And this year is a really important year because our curriculum a number of years ago changed to try to mirror as much as possible our Year 11 and 12 units. So our boys really start their senior schooling, their senior curriculum back in Year 10. They have 6 subjects and they link very, very well into their senior subjects. And it's trying, I guess, to prepare them as much as possible for their work in Years 11 and 12. We also have a check-in around August where each of our Year 10 boys will sit with a middle leader, either a curriculum middle leader or a pastoral care middle leader, to go through their subjects, to look at their data and to try and, I guess, map out their future pathway. Our Year 11 work is really preparatory for Year 12. But that's not to say that Year 11 is not important. Year 11, boys learn essential work to prepare them for Year 12. Year 11, it's also very important that our boys pass their subjects. Each time they pass their subjects, they're awarded 1 QCE point, particularly in our ATAR-bound subjects, but also in our certificate-bound subjects. It's very, very important that our boys stay on track with their certificate so that right towards the end, they're not struggling to try and achieve all their competencies. Year 12 is an extremely important year, particularly for teaching and learning. Every single mark that the boys get contribute to their ATAR. So every single piece of work that they do on their assignments, every single moment that they study is extremely important, particularly trying to achieve the best possible ATAR they can. And what we know is that this new system, this new QCE, is very, very fine-grained, so that it is extremely important that our boys focus on their last year of school, and every single mark counts. And myself and Mr. Knight will be relaying that message to the boys throughout the year. Just wanted to touch a little bit on homework. Boys should typically be doing around 2.5 to 3 hours every night, and homework could look very different. Sometimes homework could be revising some of the work completed during the day, could be preparing for the next day, could be doing some readings, it could be doing some rote learning, it could be revising any type of work, or could be actually be doing the set homework that the teacher assigns. It could also be chipping away at assignments. And what we know is boys who chip away at their assignment, as in do a little bit at a time, typically don't get as stressed when they move towards the crunch time and due dates. Also want to talk about particular pressure points. Year 10, it's typically at the end of each term. So typically for year 10s, if it's an assignment, they get to work on it throughout the term, but typically the pressure points for year 10 is at the end of the term. For year 11s and 12s, it's actually quite different. At some points it can be during the term, at other points it can be the end of the term. And I really encourage boys and parents to look at a student cafe, to discuss with their teacher and keep those communication lines open, but also look at the school calendar. Very important that our boys map their term and map indeed their semester to make sure they do not fall behind on any of their assessment. A very, very large pressure point for our Year 12 boys is external exams. And as I've mentioned previously, every single moment of that external exam is extremely important for our boys to use. We have an external exam preparation program that Mr. Andrew Newcomb will go through a little bit later on, and that is extremely important for our boys to make sure they work up towards, study hard for, and we will provide them as much support as possible leading into those last couple of weeks. I want to talk a little bit about study versus balance. We know that our boys aren't robots. What I've found, and particularly some of our academic staff found, is that boys who have a range of activities, who balance their study, their extracurricular activities, and we encourage all our boys to be connected to the college in some point, their part-time work, and also their social lives tend to be the most successful. And it's really important that our boys get to experience each of those things. We don't want our boys to be robots and focus primarily just on their academics, because our school is bigger than that. So I just stress balance more than anything. Also want to point you to our academic resources. So there is a range of course outlines, of assessment submission, of flip videos that teachers have conducted, all via the Lauries SharePoint page. And boys have access to faculty shop fronts and to all of those SharePoint resources. So I'd point you to those, as I think they're a valuable source of information. There's also additional academic support. So there is faculty tuition. So there's on-site tutoring, and those tutoring timetables get released typically around week 2 or 3. And that's where heads of faculty, senior teachers give up their time to make sure that our boys can be tutored in each of those individual subjects. We also have Study Starter, and that's an initiative where we have old boys come back, give up their time, and just sit down with our boys and help them with their studies. And it's completely free, Monday and Wednesday after school in the library typically. And it's just a time where our boys, if they at home and they struggle to start their homework, if they struggle with their work, it's an excellent time for them just to sit down for an hour and a half, open their books and start their work. Just wanted to finish off with highlighting some very important contact details. First port of call, particularly any teaching and learning questions, is the classroom teacher. Any pastoral questions obviously is house mentor, head of house. If there's any particular subject change information, then Mr. Andrew Newcomb, who you'll be introduced to soon, is your first port of call. If you like information about any of the subjects within a particular faculty or any tutoring assistants, please see the assistant heads of faculty or also the head of faculty themselves. Any careers advice, please see Mr. Paul Moskos, and any vocational education advice, please see Mr. James McLaughlin. I hope the information has been beneficial for you tonight. I really look forward to welcoming new parents and seeing you all face to face at some point throughout the year. Thank you very much.
My name is Andrew Newcomb and I'm going to speak to you about senior schooling academics. I am the Head of Teaching and Learning at the senior schools, so we'll cover quite a few things here today and I'll give you details of how you might get further information if you may need so at some later stage. So first of all, the organisations that we are governed by, the QCAA are responsible for curriculum and assessment, and most of what we do in the senior school is very heavily governed by their policies, and consequently that feeds down into our syllabus and our classroom teaching and assessment. QTAC are responsible for tertiary admissions, so obviously by the end of Year 12, many students will be looking to either go to university or some sort of further education. QTAC will organise calculations of ATARs and also they decide where students may gain entry to post-school. Common acronyms you may also come across during the final years of schooling. The QCE, which is the Queensland Certificate of Education, you may have heard a lot about that, and we certainly use that very much as our mentoring and tracking of students to see how they're tracking through, most importantly, years 11 and 12. ATAR, as I mentioned before, that's the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank. QTAC will calculate one of those for many of our students. You don't need an ATAR for many courses, but obviously most university courses require an ATAR. So there are three types of subjects that I will refer to during this presentation. General subjects are much more rigorous than applied subjects, and they will contribute to an ATAR, generally speaking. I'll talk a bit more about that. An applied subject is an easier subject. It doesn't involve the same level of rigour as a general subject. However, they do still attract the same number of QCE points, for example. And there are obviously some certificate courses students can do. Many of those we can access on our own timetable, but also we have a number of students who do certificates through external agencies as well. So our timing in years 10, 11, 12 changes a little bit. By year 11, we move away from really a semester-based look. So in years 10, they'll still do semesters 1 and 2, but by year 11, we speak more in terms of units. So students will move through units 1, 2, 3 and 4 for all applied and general subjects. Units 1 and 2 we condense into the first 3 terms of year 11. So by September of year 11, students have finished units 1 and 2 and they will start unit 3. Unit 3 will finish at Easter in year 12, and unit 4 will end sometime during term 3 of year 12. From that point on, students in general subjects are studying primarily for the external exams that they will have for each external subject. So I'll talk a little bit about ATARs. An ATAR can be calculated in several different ways. The most common way for an ATAR to be calculated is through 5 general subjects. That's certainly the way to get the highest possible ATAR. Students can use 4 general subjects and an applied, or 4 general subjects and a Cert 3 or higher. The ATAR calculation will be brought down a little bit normally by an applied or a certificate, but you still will get an ATAR. Having said that, you do also get from QTAC what's called a selection rank if you've completed a Cert 3 or higher. So a Cert 3, for example, attracts a selection rank of approximately 68, which does not give you an ATAR of 68, but it is comparable. A Cert 4 is approximately a 74 selection rank, and a diploma will give you a selection rank of approximately 87. So for a university course that required an 85 to get into, if you had an ATAR of 80, but you did a Cert 4, then your selection rank will get you into that course because it equates to about an 87. For more information that we do talk to the students about that, and students are more than welcome to come and ask questions if they think they might be interested in doing certificate courses. So the ATAR is calculated on results in units 3 and 4 only. So units 1 and 2 are designed as preparatory units for those courses. And As opposed to the OP system and prior systems to that in Queensland, the ATAR does not rely on the relative achievement of peers or other students doing that subject. So that's a change from the old system where they were effectively competing with each other and subjects were competing against subjects. In this new system, students just do the best they can in their subject and they're not competing against one another. Their overall grade will just accumulate and contribute to an ATAR at the end for all of their subjects. Some institutions will apply what's called an adjustment factor, so specialist maths, for example, or a music qualification and some languages. They may add some points to your ATAR. They won't change your ATAR. An ATAR of 75, for example, stays as that. But if you've done specialist maths and Chinese, a course that needs a 78, they may still let you in because they adjust your ATAR based on doing those two subjects. For a QCE, that's a separate thing once again. A QCE is really a certificate of attainment that the QCAA awards to students on completion of Year 12. So there are several factors that are required for a QCE. The most important ones are you need to accumulate a minimum of 20 points. Each subject, whether it's applied or general, attracts 1 point per semester. So if you did English, for example, over 4 units, then you would get 4 points if you passed English for those 4 units at the end of Year 12. You must also achieve a satisfactory result for literacy and numeracy. And that's quite easy for most students. All you need to do is pass 1 unit in any maths subject for numeracy and any English subject for your literacy tick. VET certificates can attract more than 4 points. So a Cert 2 is 4. A Cert 3 can attract, for example, anything from 4 to 8 points. So students who do a Cert 3 business at our college will receive 8 points if they complete the Cert 3 business, which is great for their QCE. The QCAA has a lot of information on this. If you want to look up some more, realistically, students will come and see me, or you're more than welcome to email or call if you want some more detailed information. Most of the basics that the students will be aware of and we cover quite routinely with them, especially in our mentoring sessions. QTAC's a very handy website to go to, and students, particularly by Year 12, will need to start to access the QTAC website and look at what courses are there, including TAFE courses and what they might be interested in doing post Year 12. The QTAC website not only has ATAR information sheets, but a lot of information about universities and how they operate and what their entry requirements may be. The QCAA website is excellent now in the new system for information that it includes about syllabus information and documents. So the syllabuses are accessible to any member of the public. You can access the economics syllabus, for example, look at what will be covered. Most importantly, you can look at what the assessment regime is. So in this new system of the QCE, we must do, if you're doing maths methods, for example, every school in Queensland will do their first assessment piece, will be a project out of 20. And the syllabus document will contain that detailed information of what it will be on. It also has sample assessment items. So your sample assessment items are excellent because what it will do will show you an example of one plus a sample solution for a C standard and a sample solution in most cases of an A standard. So students can log on to the QCAA website, go to their subject and actually see what an A standard for most assessments would look like. It also shows information of how those will be marked. So there's an example of an ISMG for a subject, and that's an A standard. So it shows you the descriptors within the criteria that they need to meet to be an A, and the work solution would colour code parts of the work that match those. So students can see where an A standard comes from in their piece and how it would look when teachers mark that on an ISMG, which is their instrument-specific marking guide. So for Year 10, our college aligns all subjects in Year 10 to a senior subject, with some very few exceptions, which I'll speak about in a moment. But that's not done across all schools. So what that means is at St Lawrence's, if you think you might be interested in studying economics in Years 11 and 12, you can actually take economics in Year 10. The whole point of that is we want students to know during the first 3 terms, primarily of Year 10, are they studying the right subjects for them in terms of their ability, but also in terms of their interests. We don't want students studying Year 11 doing a whole unit of economics, for example, and realising it's not what they thought, it's not what they like, or it's not what they wanted to study. So ideally our students will choose those subjects based on their interests at the end of Year 9 or during Year 9 for Year 10 and what their potential career paths may be. And then during Year 10, they're welcome to change or look at other ones if they think that one subject might not be for them. That's also covered in depth in their what's called their set plan, which is done in term 3 of year 10. We'll have a normal mentoring meeting, but it's slightly different in the sense that we actually talk very much about their goals, ambitions, where they're at, and whether or not they've set themselves up well for senior studies. Those are planned for the 5th of August, and you'll get some information about those. And as I said, it is conducted like a mentoring meeting, except it's specific very much to the students' goals and how they're going to perform in years 11, 12. And just as importantly, in years 11, 12, will the subjects they've chosen actually meet the requirements, what they need to do post-school, or what they want to do. The only exceptions to our year 10 one-to-one subject lineup is Voc Studies A and B and Applied Science. So Voc Studies A and B are 2 vocational subjects students can do that cover a range of our cert courses in years 11 and 12. Voc Studies A tends to focus more on construction and furnishing and woodworking. Voc Studies B is more for metalworking, engineering, and electrotech, electrical career type certificates. Applied Science is an easier science in year 10 that students can undertake, especially for those students wanting to go into electrical trades. They must do a science to the end of year 10. So it lets them do a science that's at a lower level that they find more enjoyable, and the content there is probably more interesting for a lot of those students who don't need to be doing a high level chemistry or physics or biology, for example. So general subjects in years 11 and 12, assessment items are graded numerically, and that's then converted to a letter grade. For applied subjects, they will just use letter grades for all assessments and final grades, and vet subjects and certificates are done using competency-based reports, and progress is given on how well students are travelling through those. Year 10 reports, because Year 10 is still semester-based, the reporting timelines for those are still as they have been through Years 7 and 9. So they'll get an interim report in April, but their first semester report will come at the end of semester 1, and they get a full year report at the end of the year. Year 11, because Unit 1 ends middle of Term 2, they still receive a report in June, but that will be on their Unit 1 work. So they will have actually started Unit 2 by the time you get their Unit 1 report. And Unit 2 will end in the September holidays, as I mentioned before, and sometime in October they'll get a report on Units 1 and 2 there from Year 11. Codes we use in Year 10 are PIA, which stands for Preliminary Internal Assessment. Year 11 or Unit 1 and 2 work is formative, and Units 3 and 4 work is called Internal Assessment, which lines up with what the QCAA will call them for their last 2 units of work. So, as I mentioned before, Year 10 is probably the important time for students to really try and make sure that they're in the right spot in terms of their pathway. Students should come and see me. You're more than welcome to email as well, or come in for interviews if you think you need broader discussion on those. And the first 3 terms of Year 10 is the best time to be doing that. It's not the only time to do it, but ideally if students start Unit 1 off in Term 4 of Year 10, that they're in the right place by that time. Year 11, once Unit 3 commences and they start what we used to be called Year 12 work, they cannot change anymore. That's part of the new syllabus. So in the old system, they could still change. So really in Units 1 and 2, certainly by the end of Unit 1, if you're not tracking well for a subject, we need to have a discussion about what goes on. Either the work needs to pick up, or we might need to consider a different subject or a different type of course, because once students get to the end of Unit 2 and start Unit 3, they are locked into that course. They can drop a subject and pick up a cert course, but they can't change to another general subject once they've started Unit 3. So ARA, that's our access arrangements and reasonable adjustments. In the new system, all ARA, whether it just be from illness from an exam or extensions or long-term illnesses and disabilities, they need to be reported to the QCAA by me, and in some cases we need to apply for them in advance. So, for example, external assessments for students who need special conditions like rest breaks or larger font and different things that are designed to help them access assessment due to some sort of ongoing disability. We need to start applying for those either end of Year 11 or start of Year 12 at the latest, so the QCAA can approve those. I'll be sending out an email with detailed information about ARAs and how they work, as well as some forms that some people may need to fill out during Year 11 and 12 when applicable. So that's what it applies to. In the new system, we cannot approve any ARA for personal choices, so family holidays or leaving early, miss an assessment. If a student misses an assessment because of that, then they will lose that subject. We cannot grant extensions, and we cannot grant exceptions for students who go away for those reasons. So as I said, the process is quite regulated. Everything we do, I must report to the QCAA. Students will be told more about this in more detail, but students generally know what to do. As a general rule, if you miss an assessment because you're ill, you must get a medical certificate and bring that to me, and then I will take care of the paperwork after that. External exams, as I said, we need to apply for some conditions for those. So the boys will get information. I will send some information home about who may need to do that and what needs to happen late in year 11 or certainly early in year 12 for that. So confirming student results, it's very much a QCAA initiative done in partnership with schools, but it's important that students understand this because in year 12 when they get marks, those marks are what are called provisional marks. Now, we've made a school decision to tell them their provisional marks before they're confirmed because there can be a long wait for confirmation and we feel the feedback and students need to know their marks. As long as I understand that a student who may get 15 out of 20, for example, on their mathematics PSMT for IO1, that mark is subject to confirmation. So we'll make our provisional marks available in the portal so parents and students know the marks. And then there's a process of confirmation that may take several months to do that. So all the assessment that students do in Queensland now in units 3 and 4 has been approved by teachers from other schools around the state. And likewise, once they've done their assessment, their marks and our marking needs to be approved by teachers from other schools around the state as well. Once that's done, we're notified of the decision. And once that is done, the QCAA Learning Portal will upload the student results into their portal. So the students can access 2 portals now. They have their school portal, which they're used to using, where we upload all of our marks and comments and feedback. But the QCAA has a student portal, and students can access that and keep track of their marks as they go. But those marks won't appear there until they've been confirmed. So IO1, for example, and some students may have already done, students in year 12 this year, they may have done IO1 because many subjects do their first assessment piece in term 4 of year 11. We won't get those confirmed until about the 16th of May. So the students know their marks, but until they're uploaded in the QCAA portal on the 16th of May, they haven't been confirmed. IA2 and IA3, they'll start doing from Easter throughout until the middle of term 3. So they'll get their marks, as I said, from our school when they're done and when they're marked. But it's not until October that we actually have them confirmed by the QCAA. So there's some examples of the QCAA student portal. There's a lot of information in there, not just for their marks, but students can go on there and find out their enrolments, especially those students who are enrolled in vet courses. They can check up on all that at any stage. As I said, probably the most interesting thing for students during the year is them being able to track their marks once they start to go in. The good thing about the new system is the marks accumulate to a mark out of 100 as the year goes on. For maths and science subjects, it'll get up to 50 before the external exam, and for all the subjects, they'll have a mark that accumulates up to 75 before their external exam, which counts for 25% of their final grade. Catholic Studies is a program that we've had approved through our LEX partnership with Iona College and Padua College. There's some information there about what they study. Students will study Catholic Studies for 1 lesson per week. Students who already do a religious subject, that being study of religion and ethics, they have some study time in most of those lessons. But that course that most other students will do in Catholic Studies is fundamental to our school ethos, and the students will do that, as I said, for 1 lesson a week. That will end at the end of term 2, at which time we take on what's called an external assessment preparation for the external exams. So that will begin from term 3 and use that Catholic Studies time. The students will get a detailed booklet, which will also be sent home to parents so they know what they're doing. That is, in term 3, we'll have guest speakers come out. We have some clerical programs we need to work with the boys in preparation for their portal to make sure everything's up to date. We have ATAR, we have QTAC speakers come out and so on. We also have some guest speakers come and talk to them about study and preparation for external exams. We'll also run sessions with heads of department and key year 12 teachers, helping them prepare for mock exams and ultimately their external exams in that time. So at the end of term 3, students will do mock exams, which simulates the external exam environment, including timing of exams, and it allows us to give feedback on those. And in term 4, we'll do some specific workshops, give feedback, and target areas of need that have been identified from the mock exams at the end of term 3. So it's an excellent program that students have access to, and that will start for term 3 when they're in year 12 and run through until their external exams start in week 4 of term 4. Thank you. Once again, if you have any further questions, please contact me by email or give me a call. Many parents come and see me during the year with their students to talk about career choices and or pathways advice. Obviously, Paul Moskos is also a first call for career choices, but certainly in terms of subjects and mentoring and where they're headed and subject changes, students need to be proactive if they can, and we'll have those conversations as often as you need. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paul Moskos. I'm the Careers Counsellor here at St Lawrence's College, and if you would like to get in contact with me, please see my contact details on the screen. Students and parents are all welcome to make appointments with me when needed, and I will regularly disseminate information via student notices, the newsletter and email, so please keep an eye out for those. The services offered in the from St Lawrence's Careers Office are individual career counselling. We offer work experience, access to external work experience programs, so things like the Defence Force work experience, resume writing assistance, applying for things like tax file numbers and unique student identifiers, and plenty of information sessions. With regards to work experience, there are 3 different work experience placements over the year. So that'll be in June, September and the December holidays. Please note that the work experience that we offer through the Careers Office is available for all grade 10 students and for year 11 and 12 students who are on an ATAR pathway. For those students who aren't on an ATAR pathway, if they're through the VET program, they will do work experience in grade 11 and 12 through the VET office called Structured Work Placement. And please note that the December work experience block is not available to grade 12 students because it occurs after they've graduated. One of the platforms that we use through the Careers Office is Career Central. All students will have access to this platform. It's used to help students to explore their skills, their interests, their qualities and their work values. And it also has a really useful program in it called the Career Bullseye, which students can use as, it's essentially a career assessment tool. So it'll help to kind of give suggestions on what career areas students might like to look into. It's really quite useful. All students when they're in year 9 do it, but students have access to that to revisit it because obviously things change for them between grade 9 through 10, 11 and 12. It's also really useful for things like goal setting, using job exploration. It does link with the information from the Australian Government Job Outlook website, so it's quite useful for that. And there is a resume build-up inbuilt within the program as well, which is great for students to use. Students in grade 10 in particular will also revisit this program as part of the student development program. Students also have access to Work Window, which is a virtual reality program that we have here at the school. So particularly in grade 10, all students who participate in the student development program will be able to use the virtual reality headsets and the Work Window program as part of that. And grades 11 and 12 students, they can access that. They just need to send me an email and book in an appointment to use that. The Work Window program is basically a virtual reality experience on basically on a job site. So it's really useful for insight into jobs where it's not easy for students to get work experience in. So there's a lot of engineering, if they want to be a firey, there's physiotherapists, clinical exercise physiologists, dentists, things like that that might not be easy for students to get work experience in. So they can use the Work Window program and it's like they're in the environment and there's lots of different questions and information that an actual qualified professional will go through with them. So it's really quite a good program and it's a growing program. So there's new careers being downloaded all the time for it. This year as well, in term 3, so the week beginning the 18th of July, we'll be holding our Careers Expo. So at the Careers Expo, it will be held during morning tea and lunch breaks during the week of the 18th of July, and it will be attended by universities, TAFE, lots of private registered training organisations. We should have representatives from the Defence Force and the police there, and other services like SCIPS who help with pre-employment services. So it's a really it's an excellent opportunity for students to come along and gather information, and it's open to students from any grade. So I really encourage students to come along and just ask questions and gather information. Also in that same week, so it's the second week of term 3, so for grade 12 students in particular, we'll be having the Tertiary Scholarships Evening, and that will be on the 20th of July, and that's where we have representatives from various universities throughout Queensland come and speak to students about the scholarships that they offer, as well as the process to apply for them. And I'd encourage all students who are considering going to university and who are doing well academically or doing well sporting-wise, as well as in need of access and equity scholarships, please come along. There are lots of scholarships available and not all of them get claimed. So it's worth coming along, and I would encourage people, if they're in that boat, to just put in an application or consider putting in an application for them, because that they might just get a scholarship, which would be excellent. There are a range of key dates for students around careers this year. So this information will be sent out to all grade 12 students and parents around the different things that students should be looking at with regards to careers in each term. So, for example, in term 1, UCAT applications will open. Students looking to apply for the Defence Force, particularly gap year programs, should be starting to look at doing that in term 1. Term 2, we have the Brisbane Careers and Employment Expo happening down at South Bank. And year 10 students will actually be doing an excursion to the Careers and Employment Expo in term 2 as well. Term 3, that's when all the university open days will be. QTAC applications open, so that's a really big one. And students thinking about applying for apprenticeships or work after school should really be starting that process of actively looking, making sure they've got their resume up to date, making sure their tax file number is applied for and everything like that. Making sure they've got are on their way to getting their driver's license, particularly if they're looking to do a trade. And term 4, that's the making sure that students have completed their QTAC applications, that they know how to access their ATAR and QCE and the dates that they'll be coming out, and so on and so forth. So that information will be shared with students and parents in the coming weeks. With regard to the Defence Force, now any student who is looking to apply for the Defence Force, they really should, if they're in grade 12, be getting that application process underway as soon as possible. The gap year though, applications typically don't open until February. So once they open, the information will be disseminated to students. I would encourage them to get onto it pretty quickly, because the gap year program is very popular. Students who are looking to apply to ADVA, they can do that from the age of 16. So even if you're in grade 11, I'd say more towards the end of the year, start looking at the application process and what's involved. I'm more than happy to have conversations with students and meetings around what they need to do to get ready for that process. And if you're considering going into the Defence Force, they offer a range of different information events throughout the year, so please keep an eye out for that. I will advertise those in the newsletter. And towards the end of the year, the Defence Force will be in to give an information session around what they offer. Also, the Defence Force offers Defence Force work experience. Now, this is run separately from the St Lawrence's work experience, so it's applied for a little bit differently. So students are encouraged to please come and see me, and I can talk them through that. The times that experiences are offered vary, and that information should be available normally within the first couple of weeks of term. They release when their placements will be. So once I know that information, I'll advertise that in the newsletter and in the notices as well. The UCAT. So any students looking to study provisional entry medicine or dentistry next year, they're encouraged to sit the UCAT. Now, not every single institution requires that students complete the UCAT, but a lot of them do. So UQ will for medicine and dentistry, and Griffith Uni for dentistry will require the UCAT be sat, as well as a number of interstate universities. Now, the UCAT registration opens on the 1st of March and closes on the 17th of May. With regard to preparing for the UCAT, there are a range of different companies that advertise training programs and so on or preparation programs for the UCAT. None of them are endorsed by any of the universities or UCAT themselves. However, if it is personal preference if someone would like to participate in one of those. There's quite a significant amount of free resources available to prepare for the UCAT, available on their website, which is up on the screen now. Senior external examinations. So if a student is fluent in languages other than English, they may be eligible to sit a senior external examination through the QCAA. The languages currently offered are Arabic, Indonesian, Korean, Latin, Modern Greek, Polish, Punjabi, Russian and Vietnamese. This is basically run as exams at the end of the year. Students need to register by the 29th of April if they're interested. It is a small cost. I think it's around the $70 mark. Students need to be accessing some kind of tutoring or assistance externally from the school to make sure that they're able to manage the curriculum, because at the end of the year they need to sit a reading, writing and listening exam. That's done here at the school, and a spoken exam which happens at the QCAA or online depending on what's happening with COVID. If students are successful in completing a senior external examination, they will achieve 4 QCE credits, and that subject may actually contribute to their ATAR calculations. And they'll also be eligible for 2 university adjustment factors, which is kind of like a bonus rank, I guess you would call it, which would be added to their ATAR for university. So they're quite good, but students do need to be competent in the languages. I also want to briefly mention the Experiential Careers program. So this is for grade 10, and the Experiential Careers program is run by Student Horizons, which is an external company. It's a 3-month program, and through that it incorporates online learning, so there's online modules and components. There's networking opportunities with industry partners and people doing the Experiential Career program from other schools. So they network with other students as well as representatives from the different companies that are on board with it. So for example, last year we had Alliance Airlines, Helimods, Nutrient Ag Solutions, Kilcoy Global Foods. They're just a few of them, as well as a number of university partners as well. So the University of the Sunshine Coast, James Cook University, TAFE, they were all on board, and students got to network with representatives from all of those organisations. And what they did throughout the 3-month program is they actually got real world problems to work on. So the different industry partners would come up with, this is an issue facing our organisation. What are your ideas on how we can address them? And so each group of students were allocated 3 real-world problems, which was really quite good. And our students got a micro-credential through that. So that's a digital badge that they can then use to put on their LinkedIn page, for example, and use that to show employers that they do, or that they have demonstrated competency in these skills. And just briefly, I'll mention quickly vocational education and training. Anyone interested in completing a VET course should speak to Mr. James McLaughlin. His contact details will be up on the screen. So the VET office manages school-based apprenticeships and traineeships and assists students with basically their transition to these opportunities post-school as well. They look after any TAFE at school applications, as well as students who are completing certificate courses, so they're the certificates 1, 2 or 3, as well as looking after structured work placement. So that's the work experience for grade 11 and 12 students on a VET pathway. So if you have any questions around vocational education, please contact James McLaughlin in the VET office. He'll be happy to help you. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions in relation to careers and any of the information that I've given, it has been a very whirlwind presentation and I apologise for that. Please feel free to contact me on the contact details on your screen. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adam Furman. I'm one of the counsellors here at St Lawrence's College. David has asked me to talk to you about how we support your young gentleman and how you can best support your young gentleman during the course of his senior years of schooling. So in the first slide that I'd like to talk to you about, it's simply about self-care. So how do we take care of the boys? How do we make sure that they're the best they can be during the day? And basically it revolves around 5 things. We start with sleep, which is amazing for young men. You will naturally see over the next couple of years that they will want to go to bed later. That is actually a natural occurrence. The brain, the hormones in the brain actually start during adolescence, start to actually work towards starting to go to bed a little bit later. That's a natural thing. However, they still need to have 8 hours of sleep. There's some fairly important stuff in here. The big one is phones. Devices in the bedroom are absolutely a no-no. Sorry boys, but it just doesn't work. There is research that shows that if you're on a device, a backlit device, that can actually interfere with the release of the hormone that requires us to go to sleep for up to 2 hours. So if you're on your phones until 9:30, 10:30 at night, that means that you're not going to be able to get to sleep till well after midnight. So phones definitely a no-no in the bedroom, along with iPads and devices. So we need to leave them out at least by 8:30. Sleep-wise, you cannot get by without having around 8 hours sleep. Some people are a little bit different and it does vary, and you just can't catch it up on weekends. So it's very important that the boys get their sleep. Study-wise, so yes, there is an absolute need to get into a study routine. Getting into that routine is really important as early as grade 10 into 11 and 12. And the amount of time that you need to study, depending on the academic subjects that you do, does vary across each one. I'm not here to tell you how long you have to study. What you need to be aware of is that the boys need to take breaks. They need to get up, they need to move around every 25, 30 minutes, have something to drink, have something to eat, go back in, refocus. So the way they do that is they need to plan their study from the start. So when they sit down at the time that they're going to designate to study, they set out what they're going to do, how long they're going to work for. It's a little bit like driving. They tell us that we shouldn't drive for more than 2 hours without a break. Study's the same. You need to have timed breaks every at least 2 hours, but also lots of little breaks along the way. So teach the boys to set themselves 25, 30 minutes of study, get up, go for a walk, have something to eat, then sit back down and bang back into it. And try and aim for 2 to 3 hours in one sitting. Don't try and do any more than that, because in the end the brain just shuts down and you won't get the results that you need. We also need to be active. What I'm talking to you this evening about is about balance. So yes, we need our sleep, yes, we need to study because that's important, but we also need to remain active. We need to get exercise, whether that's going for a walk or participating in rugby training, cricket training, volleyball training, whatever that is, it's about getting out and getting some activity and balancing that out with other things. Sitting in front of a computer just playing games isn't being active. We need to get the legs going, we need to get the body going, so that we've got that adrenaline going through our body and refreshing ourselves and refreshing our mind. Healthy in mind, healthy in body, so it's very important. Diet, also very important. We need to make sure that we have a balanced diet. A lot of the boys that we experience going to sleep in class haven't had breakfast. They crash by mid-morning if they haven't eaten properly. So it's about making sure, and I know boys like to get up in the morning and go without their breakfast, but it is vitally important that they do that. Making sure that they eat all day, making sure they bring lunch, when they come home in the afternoon, having something to eat, when they're studying, having something to eat. All very, very important around what's going on for them. And it improves their ability to study and to participate as well. Being social. Making sure that they have social activities planned. So I often sit down with boys who come into me and talk about they're having difficulty planning their weeks out and getting the study done that they need to. sit down with them and have a conversation around a complete weekly program, for want of a better word. Just sitting there and planning out what work they've got that week, what family activities they have that week, and just making sure that they have balance in those activities so that they learn to balance out again. I'll use that word a lot. Balance out their week, so they're not just particularly focusing on one thing. They're not overemphasising sport, or they're not overemphasising study, or they're not spending 25 hours, as it will be the case. Some of these boys will get jobs, part-time jobs, and that will start to dominate their life. Relationships will start to dominate their life, but it is very, very important around making sure that there is balance in their life. So we talk about sleep, we talk about study commitments, we talk about being active, we talk about being social, and we talk about diet. All of these make a balance so that the boys can be the best they can and maintain that mental health that we really is important throughout these next senior years of their schooling. The next slide is a little bit cryptic, but basically it's talking about please don't wait. You know your boys better than we do. There is lots of support here at the school to help the boys when they are starting to struggle. We know from statistics that at some stage during somebody's life, 50% of people are going to encounter a mental health episode in their entire life. For a lot of these boys, it can occur in high school, during adolescence. It's not uncommon during adolescence for boys to feel somewhat of a depressive mood or have some levels of anxiety. This is quite normal because the hormones are running around in their body. You are in the best position to identify that. What do I mean? Well, if you've got a boy who's playing cricket, playing rugby, very active, very rarely home, is always outside with a football in their hands, always keen to study, all of a sudden doesn't want to get out of bed, then that's a significant change. That's a change that you can pick up on, and that's a change that can indicate that something isn't right. Same in reverse. If you've got a son like I had who liked to sleep till 12 o'clock on weekends, all of a sudden, and if that's normal, then that's fine. But if all of a sudden he can't sleep, he's having trouble sleeping, he's up wandering around the house at night, again, this is an indicator to you that something is wrong. That something isn't quite happening for your son, and that he might be worried about something, or difficulty in talking to you about something that's going on. It could be study, it could be something happening in their life, it could be their job, but it is a really, really good indicator. That's the time for you to have a conversation with your son, but also reach out to the school. There are lots of support here at the school. From the counsellors, the 3 counsellors that we have in our office, to his home class teacher, his head of house, to his head of school. All of these people are there to support your son, and that is the time to reach out. And as the slide sort of cryptically indicates, please don't wait. All right, as soon as you can, as soon as you see something different, ask that question. It could be nothing. It could be just an adolescent growth spurt that he's going through, and it might be just the mood he's going through at the time that will pass quickly. Or it could be some underlying mental health problem that we need to really address. And the sooner we are able to get intervention and help and support for your young man, the sooner we're likely to have a much better outcome. And I know it's been a long podcast for you all. I'm at the end of a very, very long video, so I won't take much more of your time. This third slide is simply about sitting at a table and making sure that you talk to your son. If it's anything like my boy, he'd come home in the afternoon and I'd go, how was your day? Good. What did you do? Nothing. Well, don't let them stick to that, okay? If they say they had a good day, ask them what was good. If they had a bad day, ask them what was bad. Make sure they sit around. They'll hate it. They'll absolutely hate it, but they won't really. They'll actually enjoy the time that they have. 5-minute conversations in the afternoon will, again, go back to making sure that you are aware when things aren't going well. But just that 5 minutes in the afternoon, tell them about your day. Don't just settle for good or nothing. All right? Find out what was good. Find out what that nothing was about. Tell them about your nothing. Tell them about your good. We are here to help. We are here to support your sons. As I said, I am one of 3 counsellors in our counselling office, and we're always freely available. If you have any questions or any concerns, you can always ring us, and we're more than happy to help. Thank you for your attention. I know it's been probably a very long podcast, and I wish you a good year with your son.